G'day everyone, today we have a bit of a PyQGIS tutorial, and it's kind of aimed for people like me that aren't really like advanced PyQGIS programmers that are only just starting to get into this and make sense of it. And the context for this particular video is, let's just say that you have a particular task that you're doing, in this case with raster files, and you find that you're doing it over and over again. And let's just say you're using this tool and you're having to type in, you're having to click the same layer and type in the same parameters over and over again, and you're wanting a way to sort of automate this so that you're not just repeating the same steps over and over again and just clicking and typing and clicking and typing. So what we're going to do is learn the easy hard-coded method for getting started with PyQGIS. So let's just say, for example, that I've got this layer here which is understory density, and I'm setting the value, the null values to 0 here in rnull. This is a grass tool we have right here, and then I'm going to save that out as understory density no null. Now let's just, the idea of this is I'm having to do this over and over again. I'm always calling the file the same thing, and I'm always putting in the same values. I'm just sick of going through this tool. So if I run this, it's going to go ahead and do its thing, and that's great. Now this is the part where we go ahead and grab some code that has been run for us. So we're going to go up here to processing and then history, and if we have a look here, we have a little bit of Python code which has been generated by QGIS. Now effectively this Python code here is equivalent to going into the QGIS tool and typing in and clicking all the things that you want to click on. Instead of doing that, all we need to do is just grab this code and run it in the Python console. So what I've just done there is I've just copied that code. Now we're going to go up to, where is it, plugins, Python console. We're going to hit this one here, which is going to bring up our ability to make a Python script. And just ignore this, we'll get to this a little bit later, but we're going to make a new script. I'm going to save it out here as, just going to call it temp, just for the sake of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in this code that I've just gone ahead and copied. I'm sick of these interfaces moving around. Gone ahead and copied from that history thing before. So this effectively will do the exact same thing as the tool, the rnull tool that we clicked on and put in our parameters into beforehand. So just to prove that this works, I'm going to go ahead and delete the no null layer that we just created just a moment ago, and I'm also going to go into Windows Explorer to delete it out of here as well. And what I'm going to do is add a little bit of extra right into this, processing, run, and load results. I think I've done this right, let's find out. So I'm just going to save this Python script and run it. And sure enough, it's just done the exact same thing that opening up this tool did. It's created the layer, and there it is in Windows Explorer. It's done the exact same thing. In this case, all I needed to do, after I've, this is already written out, all I need to do is click the play button, the run script button, and it goes ahead and does its thing. And that's it. That's pretty much it. All you need to do if you want to go ahead and do multiple tasks is you, go through and grab the history from another tool, and then you, let me just space down a little bit, you put in another tool, and then another tool, and then another tool, whatever it is you're running, and you can make successive things all happen at once just with the click of a button, which is fantastic. And this is a very introductory, unadvanced way of looking at how you can use Python in QGIS, but it's I think that this, for some people, could be a good way to start. Now, there are unfortunately situations where this falls over, this technique, and so I'm going to look at those now. So let's look at some situations where this will fall over. Now, let's use a Raster Calculator. Where's that Raster Calculator? Just regular QGIS Raster Calculator. And to calculate my vegetation density here, I'm going to go understory density divided by total lower density. Now, for a reference layer, I'm going to use the no null understory density. And for the output, I'm going to put it here as understory density, oopsies, norm for normalized. And let's run this. That's going to run through, no worries, no dramas. So that's cool. There's our understory density that I've just made. Now I'm going to go into history, and the same as we did before, I'm going to grab out the code that ran just a moment ago. I'm going to copy this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this layer and go into our Python console. I'm going to use a hash to comment out this top one here so it doesn't run. Then I'm going to paste in this new one that we just copied, this Raster Calculator. Let's see what happens if we run this. Oh, sorry. Let's make sure it appears and load results. Just make sure it appears. There it is. Okay, so that appeared, no problem. Now, watch this. This is where it starts to fall over. If I remove these layers here, these are the constituent layers for this raster calculation that we're doing, okay? Now keep in mind that these layers still exist here in Windows Explorer, like in the files, they still exist, but they're not here in the QGIS session. If I go ahead and run this raster calculator, there we go, we get an error. Now the issue is this raster calculator runs based on what layers are sort of already in the QGIS project. And if you scroll across here, there should be a variable which says, here it is, variable layers. And the issue is that with the layers that we were using for our raster calculation, sitting in Windows Explorer, but not sitting in the QGIS project, they didn't get brought into this particular tool because they weren't part of this layers thing here. So let's see if we can fix this. Just a second. So if I go ahead and grab this file here, total lower density, let's see if we can fix the tool to try and make it work again. So I'm going to add a comma in here to try and add an extra layer. C temp, oopsies. Merged, put that one in there. There we go. So now we're bringing in the two layers that are used, and that's what the error was complaining about. I assume that it could not find. It doesn't really explain to me very well what's going on, but I assume that that's the error, is that it couldn't find this layer because it wasn't here in the QGIS project. So let's run this again, and this time I think it worked. Hang on, let's just remove this layer to make sure that it actually worked. This time it actually worked. There you go, cool. So that's an example, that is one example of where this hard coding method can fall over, and just copying and pasting straight from processing history will not necessarily work. Now there is another example of where this can fall over. Another example of where this sort of thing is going to happen is when you're selecting all of the files in a particular directory. So let's go ahead and look at our gdal merge command. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, or let's just say I'm going to go Control A and then hit open, right? So what I'm effectively doing is I'm grabbing every single file here in this directory. I'm going Control A, open, and then hitting OK. So now I'm merging 6 files, and let's just pretend I'm working on a different project, and instead of having 6 files, I've got 10 files. That's going to work fine in this situation, or in this method that I'm using here in this tool, not in Python, because I'm always going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit Control A, and then I'm going to hit open. So let's go ahead and render this merge tool out. What are we going to call this? Merged DEM. Run that. That's cool. We've just made a DEM. Nice. Now, here's the issue that you're going to run into. If we have a look at the history for what's just happened here, we've got this. Now let's have a good look at what's going on here. We've got our gdal merge. That's our tool, and as the input we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 TIFFs. Okay, And so if you were to go ahead and grab that, which I've just done, I've just copied that and bring it into our, bring it into our Python console, and then paste that. Just comment that one out so we ignore that, and paste that in here, and you run that. It's only ever going to do that on those particular 6 files that we were looking at before with those specific names. And obviously if you've got more than those files, then you're going to run into an issue, and this is where we get into more advanced type coding. There's this little thing here that I found online, and it's a bit of code, and what it does, let's see if we can get it working. What it does is it goes through whatever the path is, the directory. In this case, it's c.temp or /temp/tiff, and it goes through and it finds all of the files that are tiff files, and then appends them onto a variable here called file list. And so file lists can contain as many files as it wants. So let's just say, for example, in our original directory, our TIFF directory, let's say instead of 6 files, we just have 3. Okay, I've just deleted, ignore this side, I've just deleted 3 files, so there's 3 left, and we're only wanting to merge those 3. And I assume that if we go ahead and run this now, I'm just going to comment this out. If we go ahead and run this, it's going to give us a error. Here it is. It's going to give us an error saying, bro, what the hell? We can't find this file, because in here you can see there's 6 different TIFFs in this bit of code, but there's only 3 here in this folder. So the way we get around that is by using this code here we can see above. And it's going to look for all the TIFF files that are in the folder. It could be 2, it could be 1,000, whatever it is, and it's going to create this file list here. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of having these 6 TIFFs hard-coded in here, I'm going to go ahead and delete those. It's going to make it tough for me, isn't it? I've just deleted out all those TIFFs that we saw written out there, and I'm going to replace it instead with file list. So what it's going to do is look for all of the TIFFs in that folder, create file list, and then it's going to be used as the input for this. Now let's just go ahead and remove this layer, and let's see if this is actually going to work for us or not. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and it's still not working. What the fuck? Oops, sorry, I think I just realized that we needed to remove these square brackets, because I believe those were for defining when there is a list being created, but file list is already of type list, so that's why we don't want the square brackets here. Let's run that again. It's running, and nothing's appearing because we forgot to do the run load results thing. Let's try that again, and load results. Run that. There it is. Bang, we've just created a TIFF. Looks good. Great. Thanks for that. Interestingly, I just noticed that even though I just ran this tool just a moment ago, it brought up the old DM layer instead of creating a new one. So what I had to do was go and manually delete this TIFF to then go ahead and rerun it again to get it working. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's all I was going to show today. This sort of, for me, led into this, which is a bit of code which you can go ahead and steal whatever you want. Basically, it just goes through a series of tools and creates a nice looking map with like colors and everything. See if I can give an example. There we go, that just works. So I just ran this code that I made, and thankfully it works. So this is what it created. It sort of created this understory density map, which you can see here with all the holes filled in. It brought in contours with some pink line styling, and it brought in some slope to show us where the cliffs are. And it created this all in the blink of an eye, just by running this code that I created here. So there's an example of what you can do using PyQGIS. Now I will say that this is in a way kind of like a newbie approach, and that maybe the more programming purists would argue this is not the way to do it. And this is where I would refer you through to a channel called Open Source Options. And if you go to Open Source Options and type in PyQGIS, he'll teach you maybe more professional methods that will enable you to do more powerful and interesting things. And what he'll do, which I haven't yet learned to do, is do things like defining a function. I actually don't know how this works, but it like does something. This is just pseudocoding, and then returns a value, and then you can then call upon that later on using function and then putting parameters inside the brackets. I don't know how that works, but I know that you can do some special function defining stuff in Python, and that's how you get more advanced in doing some more proper programming stuff. And yeah, like I said, if you want to learn about that, go over to Open Source Options. He's got some way better videos than I do. So go check him out. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. Go have a play around, do some Googling on how to do this Python code, because I've just learned all this shit from Googling. And yeah, if you have any questions, drop them below. I'm sure I'll be able to help out, or other people will be able to. I had to come back because I just figured out something very interesting. So if you create a bat file with some syntax, a little something like this, where you're referring to the QGIS project where you're wanting to run your code, and then you refer to the Python script itself, the Python scripts that we were playing around with before. You have your bat file set up like this, keeping in mind that in your Python file you may need to add in some more importing things, like importing utils, iFace, importing processing at the start, importing QColor, etc. Once you've done all of that, you then go into Task Scheduler. You can set it up so that you don't even need to be sitting at your computer to run these tasks. You can use Windows Task Scheduler to set it up so that at 7:15 every day, for example, or just on this particular date, or you can do it every week, whatever. If we run this bat file, what it does is it then goes ahead and opens up QGIS and then runs the Python script in QGIS as soon as QGIS opens. So QGIS is now running the Python script, and there it is, bang. It just did it all just like that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you can have it do that for you, and I'm sure there's some very powerful things that you can do with this. So anyway, I think that's me done for the moment. Good luck with it. Let me know how you go.